It's 2018 and Tia-Clair Toomey Orr is halfway through rowing the distance of a marathon. It's expected to take some of the fittest people in the world approximately 3 hours to complete. It's a distance most people will never row. But that's not all Tia's taken on today. She's already completed muscle-ups, a bike ride, 150 kg back squat, 58 kg shoulder press and 188 kg deadlift. As if there isn't enough pressure, 10,000 people are watching on and hundreds of thousands more online. Surrounding her are athletes from all around the world, all with their hands gripped to the rower, pull after pull, meter after meter, focused on the relentless task at hand. Their legs are cramping, hamstrings burning, many being tended to by medical and limping off the floor. This is just day one of the CrossFit Games, something Tia trains for up to 10 hours a day, every day. She's got 3 more grueling days of competition ahead of her. But this is what it takes to be named the fittest woman on earth, 6 times. I'm Ant Middleton, and this is Head Game. Today, what it takes to be an Olympian, Commonwealth Games Gold Medalist, and fittest woman on earth. The fittest woman on the planet. What a pleasure. How are you, Tia?
I'm well. Thank you so much for having me.
It's absolutely phenomenal to have you on my podcast, Head Game. God, talk about getting your head in the game and staying focused and getting in the zone. You've been the fittest woman on the planet 6 times. Talk to me about how this first came about. When did that all start for you?
I think for me, I've always had that confidence that I was a very good athlete. I could adapt to any sport that I entered into, even from a very young age. So my parents had me in multiple different sports. You know, every afternoon after school, I was doing a different sport. And I think that really shaped me and laid a really solid foundation. And I finally, when it came to CrossFit, was able to challenge myself in so many different ways. So that to me was really exciting. And when it came to the CrossFit Games, I knew that I could definitely compete because that's what I love to do. But I never realized that I had the ability to win the CrossFit Games. You know, I think I just showed or had so much admiration for the athletes that competed at the CrossFit Games on a yearly basis. And I didn't really see myself as an athlete that was at their caliber until I was really immersed in that environment. And after a couple of years and then realizing, oh, wow, you know, I really have what it takes. I just need to finesse and really emphasize or, you know, dive deeper into my mental fortitude to, I guess, see myself as a champion. That's when things started to change. And, you know, before too long, here I am sitting here today with 6 titles under my name. So it wasn't something that I really initially started to, like, I didn't start CrossFit to become a multiple world champion. But it's definitely been an incredible journey so far.
Well, let's get into that journey, Tia. So you talk about your journey to finding it. A bit like myself in the military. When I joined the military, I never thought I was going to be in the special forces. But then I found out that I was good at what I'd done. I enjoyed what I'd done. I loved the different challenges. I loved challenging myself. And then the natural progression sort of took me up to the special forces. And in your world, I would say the CrossFit Games. How did that come about? When did you ever think, Tia, that it was a good idea to train 10 hours a day? Because that is a certain mindset that only few possess.
Yeah, so when we very first started, we knew that I was behind the 8 ball in the sense that these athletes that I would be competing against have been doing CrossFit for multiple years and I had only really just started. So I've always felt like I had to play catch up. So early on in my journey, I had to do, you know, so many thrusters, so many pull-ups, and I had to get those repetitions in so that I could actually make up ground essentially. And as time has progressed, we've turned this into a profession. So when I very first started, I had a full-time job and this was more of a side hustle and it was a hobby of mine. But then as we've progressed and we've started realizing, there's money to be made in this sport. I have sponsorships now where they pay me in order to be a full-time athlete and things like that, where we've been able to mold and really shape our career to dive deeply into this. Well, let's start looking at this as a profession. And, to get very good at what you do, you need to put the hours in. And so that's where, 10 hours training every single day before the games is crucial to optimizing my performance and making sure that I'm standing on top of the podium at the end of the day.
And what mindset does it require to get into that space, knowing that, this is all or nothing? You're either going to make it and you're going to get the sponsors and you're going to basically turn your hobby into a career, into your primary career. What sort of mindset did you get into to be able to train 10 hours a day? And, what sort of zone does it require and discipline does it require for you to do that?
Really diving deep into what my why is, understanding how determined I am to go out and achieve the goals that I've set for myself, surrounding myself with really dedicated and strong people that have the same ambitions as me. For example, my husband, Shane, we've been fortunate enough to, as the years have progressed and we've been able to evolve in our careers, he now becomes, my coach full-time versus having to juggle a full-time job as well. And having that other person as dedicated, as determined, and basically on the same understanding of what our priorities are really helps to help shape that mindset and also help shape that drive that we have in order to be successful in the goals that we set for ourselves.
Yeah, so basically it sounds like that you're bouncing off each other, physically, psychologically, emotionally, pushing each other on. Again, that why, that purpose. So what was the why that kept you there?
Yeah, so my why has changed almost every year. It depends on the environment I'm in, what I've achieved the following year, all that type of thing, how I've grown as an athlete, how I've grown as an individual, how I've matured, the experience that I've also received in previous years. But when I very first started out, it was simply just to have stories and goals to talk about to my future children.
Love that.
And for me, that was really important that I had, or I could back up the stories and say, hey kids, like this is what your dad and I used to do when we were young. This just shows that anything is possible if you really set your mind to it. And I suppose when I was growing up, even at school, a lot of people said I had to go to uni to, study and get a secure job. And I watched my mum and dad just work so hard, grinding every single day on a sugarcane farm. And for me, seeing that hard work displayed as I was growing up was a real eye-opener because, I seen them and the hardships that they go through and not getting the dividends that you should be with the work that you're putting in. And it just, some things just didn't really make sense. So once I started really having to make that decision on what I wanted to do with my life, I tried to do the whole go to university and, do the right thing that a lot of people, particularly like my teachers and everything, would suggest to do. It just didn't sit right with me, and it wasn't necessarily the passion that I was chasing. So I kind of took a leap of faith on myself and decided, what, stuff this. I'm either going to sink or swim, and the only option is to swim. So making this a reality and turning that into my why and, the motivation and creating that momentum to keep driving was definitely helpful. And then as my career has progressed forward, that's why has still stuck with me. But, halfway through my career, I started winning the championships one after another. And then it became, I want to be the most dominant athlete of all time in the CrossFit space. And then from there, it's, becoming unstoppable. And people, might say, oh, isn't 6 enough and stuff. But why do we have to put a, limitation on what you're accomplishing? So, why not 10? Why not 15? Just trying to constantly raise that bar. And now what's funny is I'm back into competition and literally trying to showcase my future children, but my daughter now, and it's kind of come full circle. So my why is literally living and breathing now, and it's just quite ironic, actually.
No, do you know what? I love that, Tia. I can relate to everything that you said there, because you spoke about when you leave yourself with one option. I always say this to people: when you leave yourself with one option, you'll be amazed and fascinated at what you can achieve. When you give yourself multiple options in life, you tend to tiptoe around, or you tend to take the easier route. But when you leave yourself with one option, and you focus and commit 100% to it, you'll always be fascinated and amazed at what you can achieve. And also the second point that you mentioned is the why always changing. I find that I relate to that as well, because when the why changes all the time, or you've got fresh goals, fresh purpose, you don't get complacent. Mm-hmm. It's almost a new, exciting drive. It's fresh in the mind. It's a new goal that you want to achieve. Could you just talk me through your first ever major competition? Just tell me what it felt like to be there, the nerves. Were you scared? Were you anxious? Can you just talk me through what competition it was and how you felt on the day?
Well, I think the first major one would have to have been the CrossFit Games back in 2015, because in order to get there, I went through regionals and everything, but it was Australia based. The major one was obviously being on a world stage, which was the CrossFit Games. And I think back to that, and I was just so excited. It was like a kid in a candy store, I was just out there. I had this fresh uniform on from Reebok that we had my name all over it. It had, the spicy colors that they used to do for CrossFit. I got 3 pairs of shoes, which at the time was just so awesome. Getting free clothes and free shoes was just unbelievable. And I mean, it still is. But when I got that free package of, signing up for the CrossFit Games, that was a huge win in itself. And then taking the floor, being able to take the floor for myself, but also for Shane, who was coaching me, for my family and my friends. And it was so small in our world that my family didn't even know I was competing.
Oh, wow.
So it's so crazy to look back. We didn't even really make it such a big deal. So when I actually podiumed, that was like, it was huge. It was like we won the lottery. And then, funny story, I didn't even know you got paid when you podium. So that was even funnier. And it's just crazy because I never really...
Cha-ching.
Yeah, it was great. But I never really went in there with any expectations, I just... being there and embracing that environment and being on the world stage for the very first time and getting to compete, which is what I loved and why I was really doing it at the end of the day, was just so exciting and exhilarating. It felt so fulfilling to be able to showcase everything that I'd trained for.
Wow, 2015 CrossFit Games. That sounded like that was the start of this amazing journey of yours. You podiumed there, and then talk me through the first win that you got, and also not just the win. I don't want people just to realize about the victory, what it took for you to get that goal, what it took for you to succeed at that level. Where was it, and how did you achieve it?
Yeah, so back in 2017 is when I very first won the CrossFit Games, and it was my very first CrossFit Games. However, 6 months prior to that, I was recovering from heartbreak and failure in my own mind, right? Because I'd just come second a second time at the CrossFit Games, but I also had gone to the Olympics and got a lot of shade, if you will, from the media not performing at their expectation, right? So, I learned a lot as an athlete from external pressures or external outlets. I guess for me, it was a realization that, wow, I can allow this external noise to get the better of me, or I can, turn inwards to actually stand on top of that podium. And I knew I physically had what it took. I had started becoming more experienced as an athlete. So now not only did I have, 2015, but I had 2 years, 2015 and 2016, of experience under my belt. I was no longer a rookie, but I also started to read a lot more and started to understand the importance of that mental fortitude and how you visualize yourself, how you see yourself. So for me, prior to competing in CrossFit and everything, I see myself as a competitor, not a champion. And there's a very big difference. And it wasn't like I just didn't realize the importance of visualizing yourself as a champion if that's something that you want to go out and achieve. And if you had asked me back in 2015, even 2016, would I want to win the CrossFit Games, I would have said yes, but I wouldn't have really understood, or I wasn't there just to win. I was there for the experience. I was there for the name on the jersey and, just going out there and showcasing my hard work from training. But when I took the floor in 2017, I was there to win. And there is a huge difference between that. And between 2016 and 2017, I did a lot of training outside the gym to mentally prepare myself, to reassure myself, and to make sure I knew what it took mentally to get on top of that podium. And it comes back to what we've just already been talking about. Understanding my why, not getting complacent in training, visualizing myself as a champion and seeing nothing less, and constantly reminding myself and showcasing the determination, the drive, and adopting that, unstoppable mindset or that attack nature of I'm not going to accept anything less than number one. And that's where the hardship between 2016, 2017 took me in order to stand on top. And that feeling was, it was actually a sigh of relief. It was, wow, like I actually am a winner and I deserve to be here and I'm worthy of being a champion. Because I suppose if I didn't win for another time, I would have felt like I wasn't worthy enough. And I was relieved to not have to feel that. The rest is history. From there, it was just that reassurance I needed to showcase, yep, I knew I had what it took to make sure I was standing on top of the podium. I had the team, I had the equation to be able to say I'm a champion. And that equation has constantly evolved as the years have progressed, the sport has progressed, and I'm constantly trying to push that envelope and keep that title. And now, because I've had a year off, I have to go back to the drawing board and try and get that title back.
Yeah, it's amazing when you look at it like that. But 2017, so that was when everything changed for you ultimately. Just quickly talk, we skipped the Beattie parts and the gritty parts. It's 3 days long, isn't it? So in 2017, you've got 3 days of this. This isn't just a case of you turn up one day and then you do. It's 3 days. Can you remember the first event of that 2017 CrossFit Games?
Oof, the first event. Well, it actually is.
Now I'm testing you.
Now you are testing me because sometimes the years are all mixed together. But I actually think it was a 4-day competition over 5 days. So it started on a Wednesday, and then we competed Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it's actually more of a week long, or like a 5-day competition,
Wow.
but each year is a little bit different. Now, I think it would have had to have been some kind of run, swim, run, or a swim, paddle, run, or something like that. But it was a very endurance event. So that for me was something that I competed in. I was very confident, obviously, with my childhood growing up on the beach all the time, doing a lot of endurance competitions through cross country and all that. I just had confidence in that. What I do remember, regardless of the events, was constantly having to check in with myself throughout the competition, reassuring myself, hey, I still got this, even though the leaderboard would go up and down, you might place first, but then you might place 10th, or you might place 15th, and then your points are dropping, and everyone's placing differently, and everyone throughout the weekend is just constantly changing. And I just had to remind myself I needed to keep attacking throughout every single workout, giving it my absolute all in every single workout. Because the way we look at it is you can lose the CrossFit Games in one event, but you can't win the CrossFit Games in one event. You have to win the CrossFit Games over a vast number of events, if that makes sense. But it only takes one workout to lose it.
Yep.
So you can't let your guard down at all throughout the weekend.
And is there a mantra that you use to get through those times? When you're seeing the scoreboard go up and down, you try and ignore what's going on. You just put 100% into each and every event. But is there a mantra that you used when that happened?
Yeah, I think it was more about trusting in the process, trusting in everything happens for a reason, trusting in the work that I've put in, trusting in the team that is behind me, because they have prepared me for absolutely anything and everything. And when you have that trust, when you have that confidence that you have what it takes to attack every single workout, no matter what it is, running, swimming, weightlifting, gymnastics, you name it, that you're capable of doing that because you've done harder in training. I think that's what got me through, and that's what's continuously getting me through these years, because my training is so much harder than the CrossFit Games. And having that reassurance, trusting in the process, understanding that I know what it takes to get there and what I have to do and what shape I have to be. I think that, I have that much confidence and that much trust in what Shane has done for me throughout the season, that I've done the hard work. I just need to showcase and, essentially go on stage and show off what my true potential is. And that is something that I really fall back on competition day, because that's what gets me through. Giving, people always hear doubts in their mind. We're our hardest critics, and we may have keyboard warriors or people that are a little bit negative in our lives, but I guarantee you we're actually harder on ourselves than they are of us, right? And so it's about reassuring ourselves. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've heard about the good wolf, bad wolf saying, always constantly trying to feed that good wolf on your shoulder versus the bad wolf. And I think that confidence, that trusting in the process allows me to really keep feeding that good wolf essentially throughout competition.
That's great, because it's about the wolf that you feed ultimately, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Are you feeding the good wolf or are you feeding the bad wolf? But whilst you're feeding the good wolf, the bad wolf does take some bites every now and then, but it's about keeping that at bay. And like you said, trusting the process, mm-hmm. being confident in your capabilities. And you obviously do that through your training, which is why I asked the question. And there's so many parallels with the military as well. It's that discipline, being disciplined enough, to identify the small things, to be able to have that attention to detail and be consistent with your discipline. How disciplined do you have to be during your training?
Well, it was an interesting take throughout COVID, because people were talking about how, we all had to be isolated and, everything was shutting down and, there wasn't really a whole lot to life. But that's literally my life. So for me, throughout COVID, it wasn't really any different because all I really do is...
For you, it's easy. It's just like, this is my life. I'm done.
Yep. Like I train, eat, sleep, repeat, And so it's a really interesting thing because, if it doesn't align with my priorities and it doesn't align with, is this going to get me on top of the podium, then it's completely out of the question. It's not even something that we consider. And I don't look at them as sacrifices. I don't look at the way we've lived our life for the last few years while we've been on this journey as sacrifices, because this is something that Shane and I have wanted to do. We've wanted to dive all in. And, in order to be a professional, you have to take this seriously. This is the forefront of our minds. And it's going to be a really interesting challenge going into this season with our baby because she's now number one priority, and there's going to be changes and challenges that come with that because competition is no longer the number one priority. So that to me is a challenge that I am so excited about because it's something different, and I would never have embarked on this journey if I wasn't up for challenges. So for me, I feel like this is coming into my life at a really good time, just to push the envelope that much more and see what I'm truly capable of. And it's just crazy because, every year we talk about what it's been like at the very beginning to, what your why is throughout the journey and as it changes and everything. And to me, it's like I'm reliving those uncharted waters again. And, for the first time, I'm feeling refreshed and I'm feeling excited because I have something more to kind of challenge myself. And to me, it's a very exciting time. And I'm getting to apply everything that I've been learning over the last few years again in a different situation, and that's really exciting too.
The world really took notice when you were competing and training hard when you were pregnant. Now that, I like to think that, everyone can achieve certain things, a certain way of thinking, a certain mindset, a certain, grit and determination, but that's different league. I don't know whether that's in your DNA or whether it's, how it's been forged into you. Talk me through that because that is absolutely phenomenal.
Well, I didn't really anticipate that happening, so it was a little bit of a surprise, but I think that at the end of the day, my life has always been about trying to live it to the fullest. And it doesn't matter what we've, applied ourselves to. It doesn't matter what is coming up. I've always wanted to take opportunities as they come and see if I can accomplish that or if I can, push myself. And I really believe in challenging myself and constantly pushing myself in an uncomfortable way, because if it's something that I don't want to do, then I would like to actually see, okay, well, I obviously don't want to do it, so I'm going to try and do it because, who knows what that might lead to. So pushing myself and stepping outside of my comfort zone is a constant thing that I'm trying to strive for because I think it makes me grow as an individual. And when I was pregnant, when I found out I was pregnant, I knew I needed to obviously be very smart with every decision I made because not only am I thinking of myself, but I'm also trying to grow a healthy and happy human being. So I know what my body is capable of doing, and what seemed very hard and challenging to some was actually very manageable for me compared to what I'm used to. So throughout my journey, I was doing everything that made me feel happy, made me feel healthy, and made me feel like I was creating a very healthy baby.
So after you give birth to baby Willow, you're still training, you go back and you compete. As a mum, how long after having baby Willow when you thought, right, it was a good idea to compete again?
Yeah. Whether it was a good idea to compete or not, I don't know. You can put that up to the verdicts. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that have their own opinions on that. But for me, it was a really tight timeline of 5 months. It was a fascinating thing because obviously I didn't want to jeopardize my recovery or anything like that. But it took me a little longer than what I had anticipated it would after giving birth. So probably around about 3 months postpartum, I started actually training. And then, as the weeks progress, I could have gotten a little bit more intense with my training. And I got back into shape and was able to take the competition floor 5 months postpartum at the Rogue Invitational last year in 2023. So that was really exciting. And honestly, that was one of the most incredible experiences I've ever done. Like I said, it was a very challenging portion of my career just because it was contemplating, am I making the right decision? Not knowing what's possible. Everyone's different. So it wasn't like I could go off, what others have done in the past. And for me, it was all about listening to the body and really making sure that I was being smart with my recovery. But also, I didn't want to just go to the competition and come in last, right? I wanted to actually go to the competition. I wanted to win. And I wanted to take the mentality that I've been learning and growing as an athlete over the last, 10 or so years that I've been doing this, and I wanted to apply everything that I've actually learned. But for the first time in ever, I actually came to a challenge where physically I could only be as good as what I showed up to be. And mentally I was all there. So that was a really fascinating process where mentally, I was just constantly pushing myself, giving myself that reassurance that I knew what it took to stand on top of the podium. I was so confident in the training that I've done, but I also had to be very okay with not being 100% back to competition ready. And that was a really fascinating process because I had to really work through my ego. I had to really work through being okay with certain, squat numbers, being okay to not overdo it as well and staying healthy in that way. But you know what? I absolutely gave it my all. I didn't stand on top of the podium, which I walked away absolutely gutted about. But I also walked away feeling like I had so many wins to take away. So not only did I walk away thinking, okay, cool, that's a really great baseline to start off with. It's going to set me up for a really solid next season. So obviously this season coming up in 2024. But for me, there was so many good things that came out from it. I still have what it takes to compete and be up against like the top dogs in our sport. But I've evolved as a human being. I've evolved as a competitor. And, there's certain things that sometimes as an athlete, when you're just so driven and focused on competing, you think that that's all that's happening in the world. And it's definitely opened me up to realizing, it's just competition. And, there's so much more to life than competing. And, it really has matured me a lot more than what I was prior to having Willow.
it's fascinating because you say you didn't stand on top of the podium, but you were on the podium. Is that correct?
Yes, I came in second.
There you go. So, I like how you just brushed that away. That's the humbleness coming out of you. You came second, which is absolutely phenomenal after giving birth. Physically, did you notice? Wow, there's some changes here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously, without going in too much detail, the best way to explain it was my body was asleep, and so I was trying my hardest to recover and allow the body to heal the way it needed to, not rushing that process. But, I also was trying to fast track it as well. And it was a really fascinating thing. I could only really lift so much weight without having to injure myself or to have any complications, right? So for example, back squatting. My quads were just always in so much pain because I wasn't activating my core, because my core was still recovering and coming back into place. And I think it was a realization of just how much you actually use your core and your midsection to perform a squat. But I could only really squat so much weight. And so I was slowly building, but, I wasn't even hitting. I think I hit, 50% of my 1RM, and even that was a challenge for me. And so I had to be okay with that being a reality because, I was doing the necessary Pilates and postpartum exercises that help bring everything back together, strengthen it, and really create a solid baseline. And, I'm really glad that I did. I'm really glad I put my ego aside to allow for that recovery process to happen, because now it's paying off in dividends, right? And the further I get away from having from my birth is, it's like a night and day difference. And so without even having to lift very much weight right now, I'm every week progressing and getting that much stronger because my body is starting to wake up. It's starting to understand how to activate more. It's actually more together. And, it's just I guess it was a huge eye opener, just how incredible the body really is and what it really is capable of. And it comes back to what we were talking about a little bit before, just why do I keep pushing the envelope and why do I want to challenge myself and why did I want to train throughout my pregnancy and all this? And it's always because for me there's always a lot of loud noises on what you can't do or what people shouldn't be doing, and I feel like we should be focusing on what we can do, what people can achieve. And I think it's really important to boost people up rather than bring them down.
Yeah, absolutely. I would be absolutely petrified, Tia, if I was up against you and you came second after giving birth a few months later. I would be like that. This woman is on a mission. She is not stopping for no one. So I just want to quickly touch on your success because we've talked a lot about you and the mindset and the drive, the discipline, everything that's needed to be the fittest woman on the planet. But let's talk about your successes. Talk me through the games that you've won, what they felt like, and again, just briefly, I know you've racked up a good mantelpiece there, and how you see yourself moving forward from this day forward.
Yeah, so I've won every CrossFit Games since 2017, all the way up until 2022.
Wow, wait, let me hit on that. So you've won every single CrossFit game from 2017 to 2022. Wow, that is some achievement. That's something that I actually didn't know. And I talk about you being a fierce competitor. I would definitely shit myself if I was competing against you. That is for sure. So you've won them all the way up to there. What does it feel like to win? Because not one, not two, not three, not four, not five. But what does it feel like when it gets to that stage? I know you're super positive and you go, yeah. There's always is there a bit where you go, God, I've been there and done it now. What's next?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think every year I've always got to reevaluate, do I want to continue? Do I want to, do something different? And I think what I've been able to do that I think has contributed to the longevity of my career has been, going and doing bobsled and trying to qualify a sled to the Olympics for bobsled, going to the Olympics for weightlifting, doing sports in my off seasons that have really kept me stimulated, kept me, doing different things. That's definitely helped to constantly keeping
Hmm.
backing up competition year after year. I also think, every year has provided its own challenge, and that's really been helpful because, for example, this year, can I get back on top of the podium after giving birth to my baby? There's a lot of hype about my competitors because they're incredible athletes. They're, phenomenal women that can do incredible things. And I'm trying to go up against them after having a year off. And for me, I'm just so eager and so excited for that challenge. And so it's just things like that that just keep stimulating me, keep pushing me, keep challenging me, that allow me to just constantly keep pushing and allowing me to really embrace the constant fight for getting better. And yeah, every win has just been so satisfying. The first win was more of a relief than anything, It felt like I could take a breath. And then back in
Yeah.
2022, the last time I stood on top of the podium, for me, that was just so rewarding, not just for myself, but for my team. It was a way of me saying thank you so much for sticking through me through the thick and thin, and finally being able to be the only athlete to have won that many titles in a row in our sport. So
It's incredible.
every win has definitely had its
Phenomenal.
perks and everything. But yeah, it's been very exciting and on cloud nine for sure on every single one of them.
Do you know what? I can see the fire and and I know the ambition to go out and get this next games in the bag, CrossFit Games, because it's one of those. It's almost that year off, but it's have I still got it? Can I still do it? Can I
Yep.
still go? I can see it in your teeth. You're almost talking through gritted teeth, and I would be doing exactly the same. I'd be like that, right? And I not a funny feeling, but once you have that, I think you will be, which I've no doubt that you will. Once you have that, then you will be probably in a completely different mindset where you might want to venture off and do other things. But I know how you're feeling right now because I can feel it for you because I would be exactly the same.
Yeah.
Tia-Clair Toomey Orr, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. You have a couple of books. The first one is How I Became the Fittest Woman on Earth, My Story So Far.
Yep.
And you've got a new one, The Heart is the Strongest Muscle. With what you've been through, do you truly believe that?
Oh, absolutely. I think it goes back to my roots and where I grew up. My dad has always and my mom have always said, show me how big your heart is, Tia. And I think every time I do something, I do it with all my heart, right? And I'm always trying to wear my heart on my sleeve, essentially. And I think it's so important that when you do find something that you're very passionate about, that you love so much, you just put all yourself into it because, that's what's going to get you there. And it is so true. You have to physically, mentally, emotionally be there. And the thing is though, if your heart isn't in
Yeah.
it, then it's not going to flourish into the beautiful flower it needs to be. And we spoke a lot of what I touch on in the book, but it's basically I've written this book in order and in hopes to help people fast track their journeys into accomplishing their goals, because everything that I've got in this book is what I've learned and applied throughout my career, throughout CrossFit, and it's what's really molded me and shaped me to the person I am today. And if it wasn't for those stories and experiences that I had and those learnings that I had, I don't think I'd be sitting here today. So, I'm very excited about this book being launched in February, and I just can't wait for people to get their hands on it, essentially.
Yeah, I'm going to go away and read How I Became the Fittest Woman on Earth, my story so far, in order to enjoy The Heart is the Strongest Muscle, because our conversation could go on for hours, because I associate and relate so much of your mindset and the emotional intelligence that you have and the drive and ambition that you have. So when you get your next gold, and when you stand on top of the podium, after that, once you're satisfied, I must have you on SAS Australia. So once you've got that gold medal, you can say, yep. And then the next challenge is SAS Australia. How about it?
Yeah, that would be sick. I'd love that. What a great opportunity that would be.
Do you know what? You focus and go out and get that goal, which I have no doubt, and I truly know just by meeting you and talking through that drive and ambition and grit and determination. Also, the team that you have around you. It sounds like that you're firing on all cylinders, and I wish you all the best. I will be keeping an eye out for the next CrossFit Games, and I hope to have you thereafter on SAS Australia. But until then, Tia-Clair, keep training, and I hope to see you standing back on top of the podium where you belong.
Yeah, thank you so much. And if you're ever in Nashville, Tennessee, make sure you drop into our gym, Proven Nashville, and we'll put you through a workout.
I'll try and avoid that at all costs. No, I will do. I will do. Listen, if I'm there, I promise. I love a challenge myself,
Good.
So I promise to be there. Tia-Clair Toomey Orr is the author of How I Became the Fittest Woman on Earth, my story so far. And you can find out more about her new book, The Heart is the Strongest Muscle, in the show notes. Thanks so much for joining me on Head Game. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of our incredible stories, and leave me a review wherever you're listening. I'm Ant Middleton. Catch you again